Reef saved me.
Casualty of war. If he hadn't interfered, he might still be alive.
I've spent my whole life putting bad guys behind bars.
Everyone thought they knew why Pauley Perrette retired from acting. The official story was simple. She wanted a quieter life. But the leaked documents tell a different story. There were assault allegations, safety violations, and a co-star she was so afraid of that she needed therapy just to cope. CBS thought their settlement would end it all. They were wrong. Now, at 56, Pauley is finally ready to tell the truth about what really happened in those final years on set. Pauley Perrette was born on March 27, 1969, in New Orleans, but her childhood was far from rooted. Her father worked in the railroad industry, which meant the family was constantly moving from one state to another. By the time she was a teenager, she had already lived in 14 different places. She never stayed long enough to feel like she belonged anywhere. But this constant uprooting taught her how to adjust quickly, how to blend in, and how to read people fast. Though she was born in Louisiana, she always said Alabama felt like home. Growing up across so many places in the South, she became incredibly adaptable, something that would later help her survive the unpredictable world of Hollywood. Even before anyone knew her as Abby Ciuto, Pauley had her eyes set on crime fighting. As a child, she didn't just read fairy tales or watch cartoons. She was drawn to real-life stories of criminals, and the science used to catch them. While most kids were dreaming of becoming astronauts or athletes, she talked about joining a rock band, working with animals, or becoming an FBI agent. And she meant it. After high school, she studied criminal justice and earned degrees in sociology, psychology, and criminology. She didn't stop there. She moved to New York and began working on a master's degree at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. What drove her wasn't fame or success. She simply wanted to understand why people hurt others without remorse. That question stayed with her for years. While she was studying and trying to make ends meet, something happened that changed her forever. During her time in Atlanta in the 1980s, she was violently mugged. Details are scarce, but the impact was deep. It wasn't just a terrifying moment, it became a turning point. Instead of pushing the trauma away, she turned it into fuel. It gave her a stronger reason to keep studying crime and helping others. From that moment on, she started speaking out for victims. She used her voice and her growing platform to support people who had been hurt, always remembering what it felt like to be one of them. Her college years were anything but ordinary. Pauley worked hard in school, but she worked even harder outside it, just to survive. In Georgia, she studied criminal justice and kept her grades high. When she moved to New York, things got tougher. She bartended in underground clubs while rocking a mohawk and combat boots, blending in perfectly with the city's eccentric nightlife. She also passed out flyers on roller skates and even cooked on dinner cruise boats to pay for school. It wasn't glamorous, but she later said all of it gave her an edge. She wasn't just reading about human behavior in textbooks, she was living it every day. That mix of academic learning and real-world experience became the perfect training for acting, even though she hadn't planned it that way. She got her first tattoo at just 15 years old. In the deeply conservative Southern world she grew up in, that was shocking. She had been raised in a strict church where movies and television were rarely allowed. As a child, she looked like the perfect Southern girl. Blonde hair and pigtails, polite and well-behaved. But inside, she felt different. The tattoos became a way to show the world she wasn't going to follow the rules others had made for her. Over the years, she collected around 20 tattoos, each one expressing part of her identity. She turned her body into a canvas that defied every expectation she was raised with. When she finally made it to Hollywood in the 1990s, she only had $71 to her name. She had just come from New York, where she'd been bartending in the club scene and doing anything she could to stay afloat. In Los Angeles, things didn't get any easier. She crashed on friends' floors and took whatever jobs she could find. She even did voiceover work for a dial-in song service to make rent. Acting wasn't a dream she'd been chasing all her life. It was something she stumbled into while trying to survive, and she leaned into it only because her original plan of working in criminology couldn't pay the bills. During one of her lowest moments, she walked dogs along Sunset Boulevard for just $5 a day. It didn't seem like much, but it led to something special. One of those dogs, a pit bull she rescued off the street, became her beloved Cece. That dog wasn't just a pet, it was part of her story. Years later, when she clashed with a co-star over his aggressive dog, the connection to Cece gave that incident even more weight. Her love for animals began on those walks and became a permanent part of her life. She has supported countless animal rescue organizations since then. Her first break in television came not through auditions or agents, but by overhearing someone talk in a coffee shop. She was sitting nearby when she caught wind of a casting call for The Drew Carey Show. That single moment led to her landing a role as an extra named Darcy, which she played in 4 episodes over 2 years. From there, she slowly began building her resume. She landed parts on shows like Frasier and Murder One, and each one brought her a little closer to her big break. That overheard conversation was the turning point. In the year 2000, she made a small appearance in the movie Almost Famous, playing a radio DJ named Alice Wisdom. It wasn't a huge role, but it gave her the chance to work with actors like Philip Seymour Hoffman and director Cameron Crowe. A few years earlier, she had starred in a small drama called The Price of Kissing. These roles weren't blockbuster hits, but they helped her grow as an actress. Even though Almost Famous didn't make much money at the box office, it became a cult favorite. Her presence in those films showed she had range and talent long before NCIS made her famous. In 2003, Pauley Perrette walked into the audition room dressed in baggy Levi's, sneakers, and a plain white t-shirt. She was a natural blonde, nothing like the gothic character she would soon be known for. But the moment she entered, Don Belisario reportedly said, "That's her." Her friend Kevin Lawson later confirmed that Perrette didn't even need to try hard. Her caffeinated energy, fast-talking warmth, and love for hugs were enough. Abby Sciuto wasn't a role she played. It was a part of her natural self. Her caffeinated energy, fast-talking warmth, and love for hugs weren't scripted. It was just Pauley being Pauley. And that moment changed everything. Abby didn't just join the team. She became the team's heart. Although there's no official CBS data comparing her popularity to other characters, fans made it clear. Viewers loved Abby. She became a fan favorite, and her role quickly grew beyond expectations. Writers noticed the connection and kept expanding her screen time. By the time she left in 2018, she had appeared in every episode since the show's beginning. No one else on the cast had that kind of run. On set, one small stuffed toy caused more chaos than any actor ever could. It was Bert the farting hippo, a purple stuffed animal that made fart sounds when squeezed. What started as a background prop turned into a set legend. Cast and crew fought to keep it. The producers eventually had to lock it away to stop people from taking it home. Bert showed up in episode after episode, offering comic relief in the darkest scenes. It wasn't merchandise that made Abby iconic. It was quirky touches like this that became unforgettable. Behind the scenes, Perrette took Abby's job as a forensic scientist seriously. When the 3rd episode, Sea Dog, aired in October 2003, it was clear Abby knew her stuff. But that wasn't by accident. Perrette worked with real forensic experts and learned the science herself. She studied DNA analysis, ballistics, and lab protocol, all to make the role feel real. She didn't just memorize lines. She understood what they meant. That made Abby more than a TV character. She felt like someone who could walk into a real NCIS lab and get to work. Pauley Perrette's heart wasn't just in the role. She poured herself into causes that mattered. One of those was helping veterans. She worked with American Humane's Pups for Patriots program, which pairs service dogs with veterans suffering from PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. These dogs can cost up to $30,000 each to train. But Perrette believed in the mission and did what she could to help. The program has paired more than 160 veterans with trained dogs, giving them not just support, but dignity. It mirrored Abby's own deep respect for service members on the show. The show's popularity exploded during the Season 7 finale. That one episode pulled in over 20 million viewers in the United States. It was a major moment for NCIS. The crime drama even beat American Idol's ratings that year. The show gained 25% in the 18 to 49 age group from the previous season. It jumped from 14.9 million to 17.6 million total viewers year over year. This wasn't just another finale. It was the moment NCIS became the #1 scripted drama in America, and stayed there. One of the oddest but most effective marketing wins came from Abby's signature drink, Calf Pow. It started out as a design idea. Originally, it was supposed to be caffeine pills. But producers didn't want Abby popping pills on screen, so they turned it into a bright red energy drink. And that red cup became iconic. 7-Eleven jumped on the idea and ran a promotion that led to a 14% boost in energy drink sales across the country. They even made holiday-themed Calf Pow cups. What most fans didn't know was that Pauley Perrette never drank it. Her cups were filled with cranberry juice. Perrette never asked for a body double, even in scenes that made her physically uncomfortable. She suffered from severe claustrophobia, but still filmed inside tight morgue sets without help. One episode, Bête Noire, required her to face those fears in a major hostage scene. She didn't flinch. She kept going, even when the set made her feel like she couldn't breathe. The show called it necrophobia, but for her, it wasn't about dead bodies. It was about the walls closing in. And yet, she stayed in character. For 15 years, she never let fear compromise her performance. In secret, Perrette also created a webcomic during her time on NCIS. She used the name P and published a series called Lab Babble, all about Abby's lab adventures. At first, no one knew it was her. The comic had Abby's humor, her science, and even featured Bert the Hippo. Eventually, fans figured it out. But the most surprising part wasn't the comic. It was where the money went. Every cent in ad revenue was donated to animal shelters across the country. It was a quiet act of charity that no one asked for, but she did it anyway. In 2011, Guinness World Records gave Perrette a title that no one had ever won before. She was named the most popular TV crime drama actress. This wasn't based on ratings alone. It came from something called the Q score, which measured how much viewers liked her personally. Not just the character, her. She beat out actresses from shows like CSI and Law and Order. At the time, NCIS was averaging more than 18 million viewers per episode. But what made her stand out wasn't just the goth look or science jargon. It was how she made people care. In October 2016, everything changed on the NCIS set. Mark Harmon brought his rescue pit bull, Dave, just like he had for years without trouble. But that day, something went horribly wrong. The dog bit a crew member so badly that the person needed 15 stitches. The attack was serious enough to shut down production for 2 hours. It wasn't just a quick scare. The injury left deep physical wounds and emotional damage. Harmon's attorney later admitted he warned him about the risks of bringing the dog back. Still, Dave returned. What had once been a safe, controlled set now carried an undercurrent of fear. That incident didn't fade away quietly. It sparked a chain reaction that would tear the show's foundation apart. Right after the dog attack, Pauley Perrette demanded CBS never allow Dave near the set again. She was shaken. But when the network let the dog come back, she was furious. She responded by having a strict clause added to her season 15 contract. From that point on, she would never be in the same scene as Harmon again. For fans, it seemed like a mystery. On screen, they never appeared together. Behind the scenes, filming had to be scheduled around them. Her scenes were shot on different days, with separate crews. The production costs went up, and the entire system became harder to manage. In her final episode, watched by 15 million people, they didn't even share the same building. Editors had to stitch the episode together carefully, creating the illusion of connection where none existed. Then, in June 2019, Pauley made everything public. At 6 a.m., she posted a tweet that immediately sent shockwaves across the internet. She said she was terrified of Harmon and that she had nightmares about him attacking her. She made it clear she would never return to NCIS. Her words didn't come from a press interview or a private source. They were direct, honest, raw. The internet exploded. Entertainment websites crashed as fans tried to understand what she was saying. The image of Harmon as a calm TV father figure was suddenly shaken. He stayed silent. That silence, for many, only added weight to her words. What hadn't been known before was that Pauley had already filed 3 separate safety complaints with HR. These weren't just rumors about disagreements or salary talks. CBS later confirmed she had raised concerns over a year before she left the show. In 2018, she tweeted that she had suffered multiple physical assaults. Her posts hinted at being forced into silence and blamed a powerful machine for spreading lies about her exit. She said she felt unsafe going to work and needed therapy afterward. The fact that she filed 3 different reports shows she tried to go through the proper channels. It also suggests that CBS had multiple chances to take stronger action, but didn't. For Pauley, the workplace became something she had to escape from, not just leave behind. The most serious moment came when reports revealed she had hired a private investigator. She wasn't just venting, she was gathering proof. The investigator documented safety violations on the NCIS set, and Pauley used that evidence to press CBS into a private settlement. According to multiple sources, CBS paid her somewhere between $5 and $9 million. This wasn't about a bad script or a pay cut. It was about safety and accountability. The settlement came with a strict non-disclosure agreement, meant to bury everything. Around the same time, CBS was already under fire for other misconduct cases. They had just paid $9.5 million to Eliza Dushku over harassment on a different show. The money Pauley received suggests that her case was serious enough to risk major damage to CBS's brand and Mark Harmon's career if the details ever came out. 2 years later, Pauley tried to make a comeback with a new sitcom called Broke. It started strong. On April 2, 2020, over 7 million people tuned in. But the success didn't last. The ratings fell quickly. By the end of the 13-episode season, only 3.6 million people were still watching. In the key demographic of 18 to 49-year-olds, the show had dropped to a 0.4 rating. That number is well below what networks need to keep a show alive. Critics weren't kind either, calling the show boring and directionless. CBS had hoped to revive her TV career, but it ended in silence. After being one of the biggest stars in primetime television, Pauley's return collapsed under low numbers and weak reception. Just 2 months after Broke was canceled, Pauley sent out one last message. On July 7, 2020, she tweeted, "I'm free," in bright rainbow colors. It wasn't just a happy update. It was her official retirement from acting. She said she now only answers to God, animals, and plants. Her rescue dogs, she added, were her only judges. It was clear she had no intention of ever returning to the industry. Her acting career had lasted over 25 years, with more than 350 NCIS episodes alone. But now, she was done for good. There were no interviews, no plans, and no goodbye tour. Just a single, bold message that closed the door completely. What surprised many was what came after. Even after retiring, she was still being offered work. Big shows like The Good Doctor and Law & Order, SVU, wanted her to appear in guest roles. These kinds of parts usually pay between $100,000 and $300,000. For someone with her experience and name recognition, they were easy wins. But she said no. It wasn't about money anymore, it was about peace. Even though she had once supported SVU and its causes, she refused to step back into that world. Turning down offers like these showed she was serious. She wasn't chasing fame. She was protecting her own well-being. On the morning of September 2nd, 2021, Pauley Perrette opened her eyes and instantly knew something was wrong. The entire right side of her body felt completely numb. She tried brushing it off, thinking maybe she had just slept in a strange position, but the feeling didn't come back. Her finger touching her own cheek felt like it belonged to someone else. Even the weight of her laptop resting on her legs meant nothing to her skin. That's when panic set in. She called her doctor, who told her not to wait. Within minutes, she was in an emergency room, surrounded by medical staff confirming what she feared most. At just 53, she was suffering a massive ischemic stroke. For 36 hours, her voice disappeared. She couldn't speak at all. When her speech finally returned, her first words weren't dramatic. They were light, even a little sarcastic. "Dude, seriously?" But the truth was, her doctor hadn't expected her to survive past 5 p.m. that day. The stroke had been that dangerous. The recovery was long and exhausting, with months of therapy for speech and motor skills. But she made it through, scarred but alive. What helped her survive wasn't just the doctors. It was Rosie. Rosie wasn't a nurse or a family member. She was Perrette's rescue dog. As the stroke unfolded, Rosie wouldn't stop pawing at her, waking her up just in time. That small act made the difference between life and death. Every minute counts during a stroke, and Rosie bought her those minutes. Perrette had always been passionate about rescuing animals. Over the years, she adopted several dogs and often shared how much they meant to her. But this was different. The dog she had saved ended up saving her back. That moment made her realize that their bond went far beyond companionship. It was survival. From then on, her devotion to animal rescue only grew deeper, built on gratitude and something almost spiritual. That sense of spirituality deepened after the stroke. Perrette began seeking peace in quiet places, far away from Hollywood. She started visiting a Benedictine monastery in Big Sur twice a year. There, she learned to slow down, to breathe, to listen. The monks didn't try to convert her. Instead, they taught her how to sit in silence, how to pray in a way that felt real to her. She came up with a simple prayer that she repeats daily. "Thank you for everything, and forgive me for everything." In those moments of stillness, she says she hears guidance, not loud or dramatic, but clear. Words like trust or not now arrive like whispers. This wasn't the faith she had known growing up. Back then, she wasn't even sure how to pray. But now, her conversations with God feel like check-ins with a friend. These retreats helped her work through more than just the stroke. They helped her process years of trauma, including past abuse and a brutal attack in 2015 that left her shaken and terrified. Even while facing personal pain, Perrette kept finding ways to give. She became an executive producer for a documentary called Studio One Forever, a project that meant a lot to her. The film explores the history of Studio One, the first gay disco in America, which operated in West Hollywood from 1974 to 1994. It wasn't just a nightclub. It was a place where the LGBTQ community found freedom, joy, and each other, especially during the terrifying early days of the AIDS crisis. The film features stories from celebrities who were there, like Bruce Vilanch and Chita Rivera, but Perrette's reason for doing it was simple. She wanted those voices to be heard. She wanted people to know that Studio One wasn't just a dance floor. It was a safe place in a dangerous time. The project premiered at the 2023 Outfest LA Film Festival and became a celebration of history, resilience, and community. But some of her most meaningful work never made the headlines. In 2015, she quietly helped a young cancer patient named Cristina Flores. Cristina was a huge fan of NCIS and dreamed of meeting Abby Ciuto. Thanks to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, that dream came true. They met, spent time together, and even got matching temporary tattoos. Weeks later, Cristina passed away. No one knew at the time, but Pauley had paid for the entire funeral and travel expenses for Cristina's family. It wasn't for publicity. It was private. The only reason it became public was a tweet from Cristina's aunt, which was later deleted. Perrette never commented. She didn't need to. She had already done what mattered. Honored a little girl whose strength touched her heart. Hollywood kept calling, but Pauley kept choosing her values. In 2007, Playboy magazine offered her $750,000 to pose. She said no. In 2013, they came back with nearly $1 million. She turned them down again. At that time, NCIS was one of the biggest shows on TV, with over 19 million people watching every week. Playboy assumed she'd say yes, but she didn't want to be part of anything that turned women into objects. She knew young fans were watching, and she wanted to send a different message. In a 2014 interview with TV Guide, she said the offers didn't tempt her, not even a little. She believed in showing strength another way, and she stood by that belief even when it cost her. But maybe the biggest surprise came in 2023, when Pauley's will was leaked during a probate filing in Los Angeles. The total value of her estate was over $22 million. Not a single dollar was left to family or friends. Instead, every cent was going to no-kill animal shelters and the Innocence Project. Her lawyer confirmed it, saying she wanted to avoid any inheritance drama. She had already spent years supporting these causes. In 1 year alone, she rescued 12 dogs. Her will was split with care, 60% to shelters, 40% to help free the wrongfully convicted. She even made one final request. Her ashes would be divided. Half would be scattered near a dog park. The other half would go to the rescue center where she found her first dog.